Serbia and EU have very complicated past. Serbia is a European country, but it is not member of EU. What is EU? EU stands for European Union. EU is political and economic union of some European states, not all. Currently, EU has 27 members. EU traces its origin to 1958. Post-World War II Europe was all about cooperation. European countries believed it would be easier to work together. In 1958, the Treaty of Rome created the European Economic Community, short EEC. This was a customs union. Member countries did not share political agendas. It was all about trade and economy. In 1986, EEC started using European flag. EEC continued to expand. EEC changed its name to European Union in 1993. In 1993, the Treaty of Maastricht established today's EU. In 2002, EU adopted the euro banknotes instead of local currencies. But some EU countries, like UK, kept their currencies. In 2009, the Lisbon Treaty created the European Council. There is also European Parliament. There are talks about establishing EU army. EU might get one president in the distant future. How does Serbia feel about EU? In early 2000s, Serbia wanted to join EU. Let's see the numbers. There were many polls in Serbia about joining EU. In 2002, 68% of Serbian citizens wanted to join EU. In 2003, 72% wanted to join EU. In 2010, 57% wanted to join EU. We see continued dropping in the numbers. According to one 2022 poll, only 34% of Serbian citizens want to join EU. What happened? As usual, there isn't only one reason for shifting opinion. Serbian politicians made the mistake of praising EU too much. The grass is greener in EU. The sky is bluer in EU. Everything is absolutely perfect in EU. Serbs who traveled or lived in EU countries realized it wasn't true. EU has many problems. From corruption, organized crime, human trafficking, 2015 migrant crisis, just to name a few. Most EU countries supported Kosovo independence in 2008. This was a major slap in the face of democratic Serbia. Since voting out Milosevic from power, Serbia worked hard to transform the society. There were many painful decisions. Many people in Serbia lost their jobs during the transition period. EU support was often laughable. My mother attended EU-sponsored 2-week course about small businesses. She was told that she should think of some great business plan and make it happen. I could have told her that in 5 minutes or less. The whole course was just a waste of time. Luckily, my mother didn't have to pay for that course. EU politicians send mixed signals. It often sounds as if they don't communicate among each other. EU politicians have different visions about the future. In 2022, French President Macron talked about his idea of two-tier Europe. This would mean creating a new political union of EU rejects. Serbia was often told about possible dates for joining EU. We were told Serbia would join EU by 2015. It did not happen. Then we were told Serbia will join by 2020. It did not happen. Call me pessimistic, but I doubt Serbia will join by 2025. EU talks about expansion fatigue. Serbia experiences waiting fatigue. In 2004, EU admitted 10 new states. EU claimed their economy was compromised by this quick expansion. In the last 15 years, EU accepted only one country, Croatia, in 2013. Turkey has been waiting for decades to join EU. This means Serbia can wait indefinitely to join EU. EU states have right to veto accession and make further demands. I know at least 5 EU states who would love to put veto on Serbia joining EU. EU supporters in Serbia claim that Germany will prevent those vetoes. But the tricky part is that all EU countries are equal. Germany cannot force anyone to remove veto. Plus, would Germany help Serbia in such a way? All new EU member states experience huge exodus of their citizens. Serbia already has low birth rates. There is a troubling fact that citizens of other EU countries would be allowed to buy land in Serbia. This might sound innocent, but neighboring countries have territorial claims on Serbian land. Many Bulgarians believe that Negotinska Krajina should be Bulgarian. Negotinska Krajina is part of Serbia. So in theory, Bulgarians could buy land in Negotinska Krajina. In 20 or 30 years, there could be demands for Negotinska Krajina independence. Serbs also analyze how other countries think about EU. EU supporters in Serbia said how Serbia will be surrounded by EU countries. And that's the reason why we have to join EU. But at the same time, Switzerland is surrounded by EU countries. And Switzerland has no plans to join EU. Brexit started many debates in Serbia. What do British know to make them leave EU? British are seen as sneaky and cunning in Serbia. Were British abandoning the sinking ship? Who can guarantee that EU will exist in 2030, 2050 or 2080? We saw how Yugoslavia ended. No one can predict how EU will evolve in the future. EU is based on the belief that all members will get along forever. What if France and Germany go to war against one another? It happened many times in the past. I'm not sure that Serbia should join unions or federations. There are also some strange information coming from EU. They throw away bananas because they are too small or weirdly shaped. EU does this while people around the world are starving. In 2018, cow Penka crossed the border between Bulgaria and Serbia. Serbs wanted to return Penka to her Bulgarian owner. EU forbid this. EU said Penka cannot be returned because she didn't have paperwork. Serbian vets confirmed Penka was healthy. What was EU's solution? They wanted to kill Penka. They wanted to kill healthy cow for crossing the border. Serbs offered to buy Penka and spare her life. After pressure from celebrities like Paul McCartney, EU agreed that Penka should be returned to her owner. Next comes strange EU accession process. In 2009, Serbia earned the right to make application to join EU. The application was greenlit in 2012. Imagine applying for college and waiting 3 years to be granted candidate status. Serbia has to open and close 35 chapters during the accession process. Up until now, Serbia closed only 2 chapters and 12 aren't even open. Many Serbs believe that EU should have closed more chapters with Serbia. Serbs compare the situation in Serbia to the one in Romania and Bulgaria. Serbia in 2022 is no worse than Romania and Bulgaria were in 2007. Many Serbs feel these are double standards imposed by EU. And finally, there is mythical chapter 35. The first 34 chapters are the same for all EU candidate countries. The chapter 35 is unique for every country. For Serbia, chapter 35 means normalization with Kosovo. What does this mean? Some think this means that Serbia has to recognize independence of Kosovo. But 5 EU member states do not recognize Kosovo independence. Others claim that EU is not asking Serbia to recognize Kosovo. Polls show that Serbs would not give up Kosovo in order to join EU. How accurate are the polls? Polls only indicate public opinion and cannot be 100% correct. But these are facts. Support for EU is shrinking in Serbia. Serbia is tired of waiting. Serbia has trade and business ties to EU. But Serbia as non-EU country has freedom to make deals with anyone. Should Serbia renounce such freedom? EU supporters in Serbia are often mocked for their blind devotion. They are nicknamed Euro-Talibans. What do I think? I really dislike the slogan EU has no alternative. Only death has no alternative. Everything else has alternative. Sure, Serbia would have financial benefits from joining EU, but I am not convinced that it is enough for giving up freedom. Yugoslavian experiment ended in blood and tears. Could Serbs survive another such failure? In former Yugoslavia, Serbs were the usual suspects for everything bad. Today, former Yugoslav republics have to take responsibility for their mess. They cannot blame Serbia for their corruption or bad business deals. If Serbia joined EU, we would be again given the role of the usual suspects. I think Serbia should become another Switzerland. This means Serbia should be military neutral and with close ties with EU and non-EU countries. But since joining EU is such a slow process, I might not live long enough to vote on the referendum for joining EU. Often repeated online joke is that judging by current speed, Serbia is joining EU in 2064.